Today we're going to be talking about my top 3 plugins. Yay! Basically what plugins are effects that music producers use to emulate analog hardware gear. So analog gear in studios is extremely expensive, and came the digital age created plugins that copy those expensive pieces of gear, and they basically they change and process the sound that we listen to. So when a sound is recorded and we put a plugin onto it, it can do various things such as compression, saturation, EQ, which means we change the type of sound coming through the speakers, which is super important. So my first plugin is a console or a preamp. So depending what type of sound I'm doing, a lot of the stuff that I do is primarily hip hop and R&B and that kind of sound, so I do like to use SSL mixing consoles. And what I'm doing when I'm going through that is you have options to do EQ, but you also have options to drive the input a little bit, which colors the sound. So that's my first plugin. My second plugin that I love to use is saturation, and there's a whole bunch of different plugins that create saturation. Saturation basically, if you hear an instrument or a sound, every sound has a sweet spot, and saturation is bringing out the other parts of the sound that you may not necessarily hear, and it creates a more full sound, and it brings out other colors that you wouldn't always pay attention to. Isotope Trash 2, fantastic for saturating. It's one of my top favorites. My 2 top favorites are the Studer A800 from UAD and the Oxide Tape, which I love using for bass frequencies, and the Studer I use for kind of mid to high range type sounds. Isotope is a great all-rounder, sounds excellent on everything. And then you have other ones like FabFilter, Saturn, which is really effective. It's a multi-band type of saturation, so you can use different parts of the EQ to saturate different parts of the frequency. It can bring out certain harmonics or transients that we don't like, and that's why we go to my third plugin, Reductive EQ, because what happens is once we've boosted the frequency, the mixing console or the preamp and then your tape saturation, they're bringing out a lot of sounds that we don't necessarily like. So we get rid of the sounds that we don't like. You want to cut out as much as you possibly can. We first start by trying to boost. You don't want to do that. Good engineers are actually trying to get rid of frequencies that sound harsh. Now that goes a little bit more advanced, but they are basically my top 3 plugins: mixing console or preamp, saturation, and then reductive EQ. And that's going to give you a great overall sound. So I would highly recommend putting that across everything. I do it on vocals. I'm not always using the same preamps and mixing consoles. I do vary it. But it's really going to give you an overall great mix if you were just to use those 3 plugins on everything. I'm not saying this is the only way. There's a million ways to effectively get the same and big sound. There's lots of engineers that I've watched and followed who do things differently to that, but this is one way to get a really big sound, and something that I didn't understand when I first started. So that's basically it for today, guys. I hope you found that valuable. If you have any questions, make sure to hit me up, like and subscribe. It's going to be across all my channels. That's it for today. Thanks for watching Spike Lee Music.